Colorado mass murderer James Holmes in court right now, where he will hear the formal charges against him in the deadly shooting rampage at an Aurora movie theater earlier this month. Just to be clear, what you're seeing on the bottom of your screen there is not live pictures of Holmes. That's what we saw last week. It's the only video we have of him and the only video we will get of him, at least right now. The defense expected to bring up media leaks in the case, which they say violate the judge's gag order. You're seeing the court on the top box in your screen. Holmes' mental state could also be an issue in today's hearing. We'll see about that. Fred Tisi, a former prosecutor, joins us, and Dr. Brian Russell, a psychologist and attorney, is also with us. So, Fred, let's talk a little bit about the mental state. Some suggest that this case is not about a whodunit. I'm going to call Holmes the alleged murderer because he still is technically alleged at this time, but many suggest it's not a whodunit case. It's more about what the strategy will be from the defense. What do you see right now sitting in front of the defense, and how do you think the mental state of Holmes will be brought up?
Well, it's interesting, Jenna. You have to call him alleged, but in my opinion, he's guilty, so I'm not going to call him alleged. I'm going to call him the shooter. And the reason why I say that is because the facts and evidence against him are so overwhelming that he engaged in this criminal activity. So the question is, as his defense lawyers well know, they're never going to be able to defend him on the facts of the case. They have to go to his mental state. And in Colorado, the burden is actually on the state of Colorado to prove that the guy was not criminally insane, which means that he understood the nature and quality of his acts, and that he understood that what he was doing was wrong, and that he could resist the impulse to do these things and didn't. So that's what I think is the way the case is going to play out, and that's where the battlefield is going to be.
Dr. Russell, can someone be insane or someone be mentally disturbed and still know the difference between right and wrong and be tried as a regular person that doesn't have those issues?
Absolutely, Jenna. Good morning. It's important to keep in mind that even a floridly psychotic person can still be and should be held accountable for his or her actions if he or she knew what he or she was doing and knew that the conduct was criminal. The insanity defense has been around since the beginning of humanity, Jenna, and the reason is that we don't want people to be executed or imprisoned for life without parole for what I call accidents of illness, things that involved absolutely no criminal intent whatsoever. But I can tell you, Jenna, that anybody who fits that bill is not going to be mentally equipped to be engaging in the kind of complex planning and concealment that we saw in this case.
And some of that concealment has been referred to in this notebook that was apparently sent to a psychologist. Dr. Russell, on that, the defense might be filing a motion today. We're expected to see it to claim that that notebook that was sent to that doctor is privileged because Holmes was a patient of this doctor. Is it privileged? Is that something that shouldn't be exposed to the public?
I dispute that assertion, Jenna, and the reason is because I don't think that this communication occurred in the context of the doctor-patient or the treatment relationship. But even if it did, Jenna, the only plausible or even, potential defense in this case is an insanity defense, and as soon as the defense inserts the defendant's mental state into the case, then it becomes fair game for the prosecution to find out about the mental history and records as well. So I think it's an interesting legal question, but practically I think this information is going to come in.
Fred, what do you think about that? How big of a deal is that notebook really?
Well, until I know what's really in it, but I think it's going to be a very big deal. I mean, it shows that he knew what he was doing. He sent it to this woman. I think that, in connection with the fact that he rigged his apartment to blow up, which is, I'm the prosecutor, I'm arguing that that was effort by him to conceal evidence from law enforcement of his crime. And so I think altogether, when you look at it, I think it's going to undermine this insanity defense, and we'll see what's in the book. But, he sent that to her. That's evidence that he knew that on some level that something was wrong.
Well, there'll be a lot of arguments about that notebook, and we'll see again how those play out. We're not going to hear anything from inside the courtroom right now. No one has a BlackBerry, no one has a computer. The members of the media in there had their bags searched, so did the families of the victims. So it's a very closed court right now, Fred. And what's interesting is several media outlets, including this one, have filed a request to unseal documents in this case, because the argument on behalf of the media is that the public has an interest in the case, that they have a constitutional right to know, the public in general, to know the details of this case. Fred, what do you think about that?
Well, they're not wrong about that, Jen. I mean, our Constitution assures that all defendants have an open trial, open to the public, and the public does have a right to know, and quite frankly, the victims do too. But here's the thing. You've already seen the defense argue that as a result of leaks to the press, that their ability to properly defend this guy has been compromised. And job one, I get what the media wants, we want to see this stuff, but job one is to make sure that this man is properly tried, convicted, and sentenced, and ultimately pays the price for what he's done. And right now, people are arguing, the defense is arguing that the media is going to compromise their ability to defend these guys. That, on the other hand, compromises the government's and state's ability to prosecute the guy. I don't want to give him an argument.
Sure. Dr. Russell, I would like to ask your question, just your opinion, not as a lawyer so much, but as a psychologist here. We've known a lot of details about this case, and just in general, is it good for the public to know all the details, the tiny details of someone who allegedly went and had the purpose of killing innocent people? Is that really something that we need to know, that's good for us to know?
Well, Jenna, my particular concern along those lines would be kids being exposed to too much of it and focusing on it too much and becoming worried that the world is unsafe and unpredictable and all like that. In general, I feel that the media involvement in a case like this really helps to expand the size of the courtroom big enough to include or to encompass anybody in our country who wants to be present for proceedings. I think that's a good thing. But I don't think that people ought to be spending a lot of their time dwelling on the gory details of the case.
Yeah, it's hard for us all to figure out, children included, but adults as well. Dr. Russell,